Hello and welcome to Minding the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. In Minding the Forest, we talk about sustainable forestry, how important forests are, especially to Louisiana, issues in the forest products industry, and how forests are beneficial to everyone. I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue. This episode of Minding the Forest is a conversation with Gordy Mouw of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, or SFI, during his recent visit to Louisiana. It might sound a bit different than other podcasts we've had because of some technical difficulties. Basically, my audio was corrupted for some reason, and I had to re-record my part of the conversation. Sorry about that. We think the program is still informative, and folks can learn a lot by tuning in, so thanks for your understanding. We have with us today Gordy Mouw. Gordy is the Director of Network Relations for the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, or SFI. Gordy, great to have you with us.
Hey, great to be here, Jeff.
Tell us a little about what SFI is.
SFI is a sustainability organization, and our mission is to advance sustainability through forest-focused collaborations. A lot of big words, but really means that our goal and mission is to further sustainability in forests through really partnerships, whether that be industry, government organizations, environmental government organizations, landowners, through really the entire group or people involved in forest working together to make sure that we have forests for future generations. That's what SFI is all about. We do that in several different ways, Jeff. First, we have certification standards. Those are really proof point assurances that products people buy, such as the coffee cup we're drinking at in this office right now that has an SFI logo on it. Those would be like certification standards or proof points that the fiber in this coffee cup is sourced from responsible or sustainable forests. The other part of SFI is conservation. We look at really doing research to make sure that the work people are doing in the forest truly is sustainable in that might mean in carbon, in water quality, in air, and now really a renewed focus in water as well. Another part is education and outreach. And really, that's what we're doing now, is another focus point for SFI. And then lastly, we have what we call our community pillar, or the community work that SFI does. And that might be working with Habitat for Humanity or Make-A-Wish to just to really make sustainable and forestry all a part of a community belonging, because whether you know it or not, we all benefit from forests, period.
We were talking earlier, and there's just a lot of misinformation out there. Most of what people find online deals with rainforests in other countries and things of that nature. In the South in particular, because that's where we are in Louisiana, there really aren't any rainforests, are there?
Not really. There is no rainforest in Louisiana, period. And some of the stuff people might see on TV about deforestation and destroying the rainforest simply doesn't apply, not in Louisiana, but not even in the United States or North America for that. And so people might see something on TV and think it's maybe in their backyard, and that really couldn't be further from the truth. Where Louisiana and the forest, certainly with certifications like SFI, are more than sustainable, and a lot of times that's misunderstood from what people see on TV. Is far away. Not to say that those things are not happening, but they're happening in maybe countries such as Brazil or Argentina or maybe Chile or something like that.
One term that I think is often misunderstood is deforestation. Someone traveling interstate in Louisiana might see forests that have been harvested, and they look and see all the stumps and debris off the side of the road, and they might say, oh my gosh, they're cutting all the forest down. And that's really not the case, because they don't take into account a few years later when they pass in the same area, there are new pine trees. They're a few feet tall, and all that's been replanted. So give us a definition that might be better understood of what deforestation is.
Yeah, deforestation would be when someone would wipe out the trees, clear cut the trees, and then instead of replanting like you would do in Louisiana with these young pine trees, as you just mentioned, things that are required by SFI certification, you'd remove the stumps and then maybe farm that land. Sometimes that's intentional, and sometimes that happens just because you removed all the trees. For example, in Brazil, if you cleared the trees, it naturally rains so much, and then the soils become very poor through leaching and a ton of rainfall that happens, then the ground can't support a future forest. And so once that forest is removed, again, this is only in South America and some other parts of the world, certainly not here, that once you remove those trees, that forest is gone for maybe forever or for a very long time anyway. So that's truly what deforestation is removing forest that it isn't going to become a forest. Very different than what you'd see driving down the road in Louisiana or another part of the country, in that you might see a clear cut, but again, sustainable forestry, sometimes that is the best science, and the way to get a new healthy forest by replanting is to remove the trees and replant it with young, vibrant, growing, healthy trees. So very, very different things. And again, certification, certainly in SFI, has requirements that when you do remove the trees, that those will be replanted and the land will be reforested.
That's looking at regenerating the forest. There is a significant health component as far as the forests are concerned, and having harvesting as part of a managing plan for those forests, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Trees, somewhat like people, the younger trees generally are the healthier trees. They're vibrant, they're growing strong, they're sequestering lots of carbon. And to get those young trees, they need full direct sunlight. To create an area that has full and direct sunlight, we need to cut the existing trees that have really slowed down in their growth curves, are really not sequestering carbon at this point, and are susceptible to insect and diseases, a variety of them that could happen. And so by clear cutting them and replanting is actually doing several things. One is, but the biggest one here is actually protecting the forest for future generations, so that they can enjoy the benefits of forest as well.
That is the sustainable part. In studying that, doesn't SFI use a great deal of science to make sure what standards it's creating and promoting and supporting actually makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that is part of the conservation work within SFI, is to study the reforestation and the benefits of not only using forest products from loggers and the mills that you might see around Louisiana, but the replanting and the protections that certification offers into water, air, really even in carbon dioxide or carbon markets throughout the United States and Canada.
Carbon sequestration, that's a new buzz phrase, isn't it? You hear that a lot. Can you define that for us?
Carbon sequestration carbon is again made up of really any living organism, but certainly in trees, the more trees grow, the more they sequester CO2 and therefore carbon. And so the bigger the tree grows and the faster that it grows, the more carbon it sequesters, hence the term carbon sequestration. And so if you want more carbon out of the atmosphere or out of anywhere, you want faster growing trees. That's just simple math. And to get faster growing trees, we need to start from very small trees, seedlings, planted in a forest setting. That's what really carbon sequestration is. It happens naturally in forestry, and that's why again, one of the many benefits of forests in general.
We look at this through the lens of the economy as well. In Louisiana, especially in rural Louisiana, forest products are very important. Building materials, paper, things of that nature, that is an important component to our economy. Why is that?
Back to the carbon sequestration, we know that these trees growing very fast are sequestering or storing lots of carbon. But also these forest products, as you just mentioned, packaging, papers, building materials, when those are utilized, those are locking up, again, living organisms in wood or packaging in wood products for maybe 100 years or longer. And so that carbon is sort of stored or locked up in several decades. But even in paper and packaging products that are recycled and used over and over again, the carbon associated with those products, again, is locked up for probably decades. And so the more forest products that we use in our everyday lives and that you see in the homes, and of course the replanting of forest, all works together in sequestering carbon in the atmosphere.
And it's greater than just the storing of carbon as well. It's dealing with water purification and things of that nature. That's a big deal, isn't it?
It's been a big deal, but it's even a bigger deal than it has been in the past. This is simply water quality and water quantity. We know that forests are the filter, if you will, for drinking water for many, many, many Americans, even in Louisiana, that in forests are really the filter. Without them, people would have to do a lot more processing for our own drinking water. But we've also realized through sort of some of our research that forests play a big part in the water quantity. It's really the amount of water that's either running through streams and rivers and lakes, and the protection that forests offer there as well. So those are two things that have been really highlighted in SFI certification standards is the protection of water resources that forests provide.
Those things are important to our loggers as well. Loggers are trained. They are professionals. They're not just out there whacking trees down and loading them on a trailer. They are approaching harvesting in a scientific way. For one, they are concerned about the soils and filtration. All those things go into account as they harvest.
Absolutely. So that's another part of SFI certification is that it requires logger training in these exact things you mentioned, in protection of soils, water quality, maybe invasive species, insects and diseases. I think I mentioned soils, but working when protection of soils, replanting. Part of the certification system says we're going to train loggers who are really the practitioners of the forest to make sure that these good items are happening and being protected again for generations to come.
What would you say are the most used forest products that people might not realize are forest products? I know we see those Amazon boxes on doorsteps everywhere.
We see that paper and the wood and, wood for your homes and the paper and the packaging and the boxes you see at Amazon. I think some of the other ones you might not realize come from wood. Certainly some of the lignin products that you might see in toothpaste. That's one I always tell my daughter that, when she brushes her teeth, or when I make sure she brushes her teeth. It's a few years ago now. But anyway, the lignin products, the parts of the tree that hold sort of the fibers together, are extracted and used into toothpaste and hair gels and things like that. I think that's one of the biggest ones that, as I tell kids, that at least the part that's holding the toothpaste round on your toothpaste is really a product from trees. And so that one I think is like the biggest one that I often use, that I think most people don't necessarily associate your toothpaste on your toothbrush with forestry and trees. There's just lots. There's many other ones, but that one sort of sticks out in my mind.
We like to mention the cellulose used in ice cream when we have our forest awareness events here in Louisiana.
Oh, that's even a better one. Thank you. Yes, yes. And now that you said the cellulose and ice cream, then the other one is, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger forest product, is cellulosic fibers, or a brand name might be Rayon, but it would be the fibers used in clothing. We're seeing more and more producers of that. It's a refined pulp that replaces cotton in clothing. And if you look on the back of your shirt tag and you see 10% cotton, something polyester, and then X amount rayon or cellulosic fibers, those are made from trees.
Because of my experience with the Louisiana Forestry Association, I look for the SFI logo on bags or cups, like you mentioned. When folks see that logo, that really means something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. For starters, when they see that logo, it's not just me saying that it's good, and it's really not the company that manufactured this product saying that it's good. It's third-party, independent, verified that the fiber in this product is coming from responsible sources, or sustainably sources is another way to put it. And so when people see that, they can say, hey, it's not just us saying it. It's an independent, third-party, audit verified that, yes, that fiber that is in this product is from is sustainable. I mean, that's really it. A lot of work goes into making sure those assurances, whether it be the forester on the ground, the logger from some of the items we just mentioned previously in our discussion, to the tracking of the forest products, all the way to the box that you might be opening at Christmas time.
So, what does the Director of Network Relations do for SFI?
I wear many hats, probably like many folks these days. But network relations refers to really two things. One is I work with all of the organizations certified to the SFI certification standard. That's about 300 or so companies scattered throughout the United States and Canada. I work with all of them to help address any issues they might see in advancing sustainability in their own organization and with adhering to the SFI certification requirements. That's part one. Part two is SFI requires that companies actually work together at a state or sometimes regional basis, and we call those SFI Implementation Committees, or SICs for short, and they work collectively on advancing sustainability in their own state or region, such as logger training, outreach like we're doing here today, community outreach, and a variety of other projects. I also oversee SIC group level work across the U.S. and Canada. So those are the two sort of primary functions for my job here at SFI.
When you work with SICs, you help them along with how these standards are implemented in each state? Does it vary from state to state?
It does, in that the requirements are exactly the same, but how those requirements are met vary state to state. For forestry is done differently in Louisiana as it would be in Wisconsin or Michigan. And so there's varying differences of how some of the certification standards are met, but the requirements are the same whether you're here in Louisiana or you're in, I don't know, British Columbia, Canada. The exact same requirements, the same things that the SICs work on are exactly the same. And so that's uniform. How they get achieved can vary, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that all the requirements SFI has set forth to organizations are being met, so that when people see this logo, the SFI logo, they know that sustainable forestry has happened.
They just can't pick up the logo and put it on anything.
Yeah, we actually police it. And one of the goals, that's one of the actually items, not just SFI Inc., such as, the parent organization SFI, but you also ask our SICs to see if you see a logo out there, please let us know. We will make sure. Many companies have tried to just slap the logo on, photocopied it, or do however they must take a computer and peel off the label and label it. Some very well-known restaurants, chain restaurants, have tried to, and they've been caught. I don't say we might not catch them fast, but we will catch you if you try to do it. Which, in a way, is sort of humbling. That says, if people are trying to copy you or cheat, that means you're doing some things right. In my 5 or so years with SFI, I think maybe a half a dozen or so people trying to scam the logo we've already caught. Some identified by these SICs, and some just by eating out in a restaurant and realizing someone's using an incorrect logo. So yeah, we've had all kinds of crazy adventures.
SFI has gotten involvement in each state with its standards, but those standards are really evolutionary, aren't they? They're not really static because of the science.
They're definitely not static. We've had, in the past, about a 5-year revision process. Previous standard was the SFI 2015 to 2019 standard. We extended that a little bit to just revising to our new SFI 2022 standards. And when we revise these standards, it's no small undertaking. We had almost 4,000 folks provide comments, from ENGOs to government organizations to the industry itself to just general Q public who cares about forestry, provide comments and suggestions of what they see as should be included in certification standards. We had over 15 webinars, and an online portal that was opened up, an online portal that could take comments, that was open for almost 2 years. And so they're big processes to update these standards. And bottom line is they're constantly evolving. We don't know when the next revision necessarily will be with an SFI. We just got done with this last one, so I hope it's a few years out anyway. But it's a big process, and again, in the past, since the mid '90s, it's been about 5 years, and I mean the world is changing that fast now. In about 5 years, there's new things that need to be included in the certification standard. This new one, you'll see stuff like climate smart forestry, biodiversity or forests of exceptional conservation values that help protect rare and endangered species. You'll see, I mentioned previously, water quantity, some of the things that we've found out in our research that really matter to community and to people that need to be included and at least that benefit a forest protected. All things now included in our new SFI 2022 standard.
Those changes, like the phrase climate smart forestry, that's new, isn't it?
The whole topic is new in the 2022 standard. Those words didn't exist in the 2015 to 2019 standard. And what really we're asking organizations to do is to really assess the risks to forest based on climate. And it's not to say, example might be we're seeing just wider swings in weather than we did 10, 20 years ago. Whatever those risks are that might be associated with wider swings to forestry is to identify those and come up with a list of adaptations or things we can do that help mitigate or prevent, or if an event happens, what we can do after, and then consider those in your forest management decisions. So just to get people sort of thinking ahead of the curve, if you will, for sometimes catastrophic, unfortunately, events that can happen to forestry and sometimes people as well. But and so that we can get forest managers and even companies that are buying wood to start thinking about things they can do proactively to, again, help mitigate or prevent some of these, or at least lessen maybe some of these catastrophic events that could be weather related.
Those changes can be measured, and being able to measure them because of the science that allows the standards to evolve as changes occur?
Absolutely. Yes. Yep. We're measuring it. I mean, there's many folks that are measuring some of those changes that you just mentioned. SFI is doing one part. I can list 50 other organizations measuring sort of the similar sort of data that we can measure and track. And then it's one thing to measure it, but then we got to do something about it. SFI is built on this continual improvement loop. And so, measure, react, measure again, change if needed, and then constantly get better. We like to say that we have to constantly evolve to constantly get better within SFI.
One of the things I find interesting with SFI is the messages are never gloom and doom or end of the world. It's, things are changing, so if we want to continue to have forests, healthy forests, here are some of the things that you really need to consider in forest management.
That's exactly it. Absolutely. Yep. Not gloom and doom, but hey, here's a trend we're seeing. Here's some things to consider. And these are some of the certification requirements. And we think by, arming forest managers or mills with the best available tools, they'll make the right decisions, and we'll have sustainability for generations to come.
When people see the SFI logo, like on the cup that you're using right now, to the consumer, it's a feel-good thing, isn't it? To the manufacturer, it's more than a feel-good thing. It's a thing of responsibility so that they can show the consumer that they're doing something about the future, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the SFI logo, depending on what part of the supply chain, if you're the end consumer, it's kind of a feel-good. It kind of warms your heart that, hey, at the end of the day, by purchasing this box, this board, this cup, actually helped promote forestry. The mill, the manufacturer, primary reason is brand name protection and knowing that a resource that we're utilizing will be around for long term because that's the business that we're in. And so the logo can mean different things to sort of different groups, which is all good, and it's all part of sustainable forestry.
What about the individual landowner? When they're approached and told that they can do more with their land, you can manage it in the way that, one, the wildlife that you want to see Like if you're a hunter, you want to make sure that game is available so you can see those animals in your forest. What do you tell the individual landowner when they're considering managing their forests for the future?
Management plans, coincide with sustainable forestry. They really go hand in hand. And one is forestry happens on a decades, if not century, sometimes basis. Certainly in the north, you get rotation ages are 60 to 120 years. Down here, you can see, 15, 20 years, but it happens a long time. But because most things start with a plan, forests can provide, again, lots of benefits. Wildlife, deer hunting, recreation. We mentioned some of the other ones, such as water quality. But at the end of the day, it all starts with a forest management plan. And it's the basis of certification, but it's also the basis of really sound forestry practices on John P. landowners' land. So I think they're very, very important. You might only take it off the shelf every once in a decade, but at the end of the day, it's a great record of what's working, what's not, and continual improvement. And I think it helps landowners meet their objectives, deer hunting, recreation, bird watching, faster than if they didn't have a forest management plan. So strongly encourage forest management plans, and we strongly encourage certification systems such as Tree Farm for private forest landowners. There's also over almost 3 million acres of SFI certified land in the state of Louisiana as well that's already certified. And we, of course, strongly encourage those certification programs because, again, back to the mission, we want to advance sustainability through forest-focused collaborations. That's collaborations meaning American Tree Farm certification, certainly the SFI, but managing forests, private, public, whoever, sustainably is the ultimate mission SFI is all about.
Isn't having something like that written down somewhat more beneficial as the land changes from one generation to the next?
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, I'm going to take us to Wisconsin, my home state now. The average land ownership is 7 to 8 years. And forestry in Wisconsin happens on, some of our rotation ages are 80 to 120 years. And so the lands could be owned by 7 or 8 landowners before maybe a harvest. The only one common bind to all of this is typically a forest management plan. That's the only one thing that sort of can stay with the land. And so we strongly encourage landowners to have a plan, to have at least a path that we want to go to based on the objectives. And the objectives can change from landowner to landowner. That's great, and they do, but plans can be adapted. But if you don't have a plan, it's hard to sort of look backwards at what got us to this point and what's the road for the future. Again, all starts with plans.
What have we not yet talked about that we should mention?
If I could circle back to maybe the education piece on SFI, I just want to kind of make a shout out that a part of that education piece of SFI is a group called Project Learning Tree, PLT we call it, and that is a program to help educate educators to teach children about environmental sustainability issues that happen today. And PLT is now a part of SFI because it fits in with our mission of advancing sustainability. So when you see Project Learning Tree or the SFI logo, know that it's really all part of the SFI umbrella of advancing sustainability. So I wanted to kind of give a shout out really quick to PLT, Project Learning Tree.
We'd like to thank Gordy Mouw for joining us. Gordy is the Director of Network Relations for Sustainable Forestry Initiative. Thanks, Gordy.
Jeff, glad to be here.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, the LFA and its programs that help support landowners, loggers, and forest product manufacturers in the state, go to laforestry.com. You also can find out how you could be part of the Louisiana Forestry Association. If you have a program idea, comments, send me an email at jzeringue@laforestry.com. That's jzeringue @laforestry.com. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're minding the forest for you.